The Mike Hosking Breakfast, 6 to 9 weekdays on Newstalk ZB.
You know, there, Feb 11, big day, big changes coming. Well, if you're a landlord, the hype is flying at the moment. The biggest reforms in 35 years claim the headlines. Houses to be emptied as landlords bail, suggest other headlines. Here's what I know. The harder you make it to do something, the less likely people are to do it, and there is no question that being a landlord under the new rules about to come into force will be harder or at least more expensive. Now, we know this at our place. We put air conditioning in over summer to a house. I say air, the government couches it as heat. Places need to be heated. The inference is that poor renters freeze to death among the mould and leaky walls and windows. In places like Auckland, heat isn't really an issue. Of course, cool air is, especially in summer. Anyway, there's a system in place whereby installers have been bundled together. They offer deals. It's actually not a bad system. But they all seem to agree that the government don't have a clue about the real world, and what you're expected to do is way over the top, and as a result, more expensive than it actually needs to be. Now, the air that we put into a rental is bigger and more expensive than the air we put into our own home. And our own home is a much larger space. The air we put into our own home is what we needed and not what the government told us to put in, and it works because the decision was driven by practicality, not government edict. We also met over the break a couple who turned out to be landlords, had been for 30 years. They own 4 properties, but they're down selling. They're over it. They've seen a lot of change in 3 decades, as you can imagine. This stuff they've decided is over the top, it's draconian, and it simply isn't worth their while. Now, that is my story. It's anecdotal, and for now the whole "it's the end of the world" line is nothing more than that, of course. It may well be that landlords by and large suck these changes up and nothing changes. It may well be the return on property beyond rent is too good to ignore. No, you don't have tenants and air conditioning in the share market, but in housing you don't run the risk of a bubble bursting in a crash. So let's see, shall we? But I can't help but think that most landlords are in fact decent people, as are most tenants. And all the noise around the rents and renting, as is so often the case, is driven by the exception and not the rule.
The Mike Hosking Breakfast, 6 to 9 weekdays on Newstalk ZB.